Beat UX. Yeah.
So, a very good evening, everyone. And for the others who are joining us from different other parts of the world, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for this special event organized by our Women Rethinkers. I'm your host, Priya Saraswat, and I have with me Rashmi, who will be my co host for this evening. And I would like to take a moment here to start with this, take a moment to call out this cause of women rethinkers that we believe in this rethinking UX community, and it is to celebrate the incredible work that women around us are doing. And it's not just in tech, it's not in product or in design, but in every field, including the stay at home moms. So yes, this evening is dedicated to all those amazing women. And in the words of Ayn Rand, who is a famous Russian American writer and philosopher, the question isn't who is going to let me, it's going to who is going to stop me. So I know this sounds like a cliche, but cliche does exist, and it reminds us to believe that our accomplishments are important, and our hurdles and struggles are real, and we are actually dusting off every day. And the proof is actually these amazing articles written by some of the incredible women rethinkers in our community. And I'll highly encourage everyone to give them a read, because these all talks about how being a woman means you are loaded with the power of empathy, you're loaded with the power of creativity and determination. And our guest today has actually proven that she has done it not just once but multiple times. So join me to welcome Ghazal Javed. Ghazal, a performer, a speaker, assistant movie director, and above all, a passionate supporter of girls' education and gender equality. A quick introduction from my end, then Ghazal, you can take the forum and you can start. But for a quick introduction, Ghazal is an associate with is associated with Sesame Street as a brand ambassador on their Indian show Gully Gully Sim Sim, and she plays the character of a 5-year-old girl, Chumki, this cute little Muppet, who is a mascot for girls' child education and women empowerment. She has also done workshops with Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, in Syria, and volunteered work in Kashmir. Her work inspires us and show us how creativity has the power to lift the spirits even in the difficult times. So this is really amazing. On top of it, actually, the list goes on, but I'll call out just 3 of them. So she has also worked with some of the well-known and renowned directors from Bollywood like Anurag Kashyap, Vishal Bhardwaj, and Meghna Gulzar, and has contributed to national award-winning movies like Heather, Talwar, Razi, and recently launched movie Chapak. So without further ado, I will give the virtual stage to Ghazal to take it up, and let's have a conversation today. So Ghazal,
thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me today. I'm ready for my interview.
Hi.
Hi.
So what is your name?
Oh, this is my interview and you don't know my name. That makes me really angry.
I'm so sorry. So I know you're Ghazal, but who is the orange fellow who's coming on board right now?
Ghazal. Like guzzling, like guzzling water. Guzzling water.
Yeah.
Guzzle.
Okay.
I guzzle water sometimes. I like to drink and guzzle it down.
Right.
What are we talking about? I'm ready. Priya mentioned cute, and here it is.
I mentioned cute for some other Muppet. Chumki was the name, but I don't think you were Chumki.
Oh no, that's not going too well. Wait, I need to check out now. Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry.
So happy
playing around.
So happy to see you. I was wondering, how do I start my question answers with you, because you have this immense body of work, but now because you brought all the Muppets, so I think I will start from right there. How did you get into Muppetry? How did you, did you always wanted to be one, or how did you come across that?
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. That's the first thing I want to say. This is amazing. Thank you, Mayur. Thank you, UX Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, Priya, for having me. This is a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really grateful to be here. How did I get into puppetry? So, basically, I've been a Nautanki, if the language is all right for everybody to understand. Nautanki means fooling around since childhood. And that's what I've been. And I think it carried over to college. It's a funny story, really. I think sometimes destiny picks you out for who you are. And the funny story is that I was in college and I had a lecture. I'm a history honors graduate from Delhi University. And I had a lecture in modern Indian history. And one of my friends, my junior's girlfriend, calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm going for these auditions. Do you just want to come along?" And I'm like, "What is in it for me?" And she goes, "Free food." Anybody who's from hostel here? I've lived in a hostel all my life. And I tell you, dabbas and tiffins in hostels are awful. So when they said free ka khana milne wala hai and it's going to be awesome, I was like, I'm game. For class, I went in and actually went in, and this is what I did. I went for the audition for free food and had a lot of fun. There were about 5,000 people who were auditioning, and this were all people from National School of Drama, from Sri Ram Center, from who's who, like all the names that you can think of. And it was a 15-day auditioning process with Martin P. Robinson, who's a senior puppeteer with Sesame Street in New York. He has a good body of work. He's an Daytime Academy Award winner as well. And he took the auditions, and that's it. Voila, I sit in front of you. There were 4 lead puppeteers that were taken, and finally I was one of them, and I'm grateful for it. And the journey continues.
That's awesome. So were you one of the first people who got sort of hired for Sesame India?
Yes, I was. When Sesame India Sesame Street came to India in 2004. What Sesame is involved with is it does a lot of research. That's the main basic core of Sesame. They're involved into grassroots level research. And when they came to India in 2004, they did a whole body of research. It's very important for them to figure out the socio-cultural impacts in a city, the education level, what affects an indigenous nation and the communities that we are trying to serve. Because the most important work with Sesame, apart from entertainment, is education. And education is not just ABCs and numbers and letters. It's more about cognitive behavior, emotional learning, socio-cultural learning, conflict resolution, how to live as a community. So it goes on to see what are the challenges in every country. And when it came to India, it identified certain key areas, some of them being health and nutrition, for one, because India suffers from malnutrition. And one of the major causes of child deaths in India is diarrheal diseases. So health and hygiene and nutrition was one of the most important factors. Then the second thing that they found out was about the culture in India, which is a very oral tradition of storytelling through which we pass on culture, folklores, tradition of Nani Dadi ki kahaniyan and all of that. So how we tried to imbibe that into it. The third thing that we came across was masculinity. Because in India, there's so much pressure that is put on men and young boys to be the man, to not cry, to be macho. The whole concept of macho, and I want to put it into quotes, is just so disillusioning, because then it doesn't have room for boys or men to be anything other than just being these stoneheads, and that was incorrect. So he wanted to address how masculinity is seen in India. And the other, for which my character was assumed and made, was gender equity, because of female feticide, girl-child education, and the whole banner of things that goes with women and girl-child, not just about marriages and dowry and nutrition and work, but the whole, it's a slew of things. So it's basically to empower women and girl children. And that's how the Muppets were created, for each specific need.
All right. So were you also part of the entire storyboarding of how Sesame will do these shows and how to reach people? Did you have, what kind of process did you all do to create those series for India?
It was very interesting, actually, because I think I had never done puppetry ever in my life. And this whole process of Sesame coming and learning, it was a very collaborative means of doing something like this. Because when they had come a year earlier before the auditions for the puppeteers kind of happened. So what they did was identified these certain key areas that they wanted to address. When they addressed some things, they made puppets for it. So for health and nutrition, they made a puppet called Bumba, which was a walk around big pink furry lion and was pink in color, just to say that we take the gender stereotype out of it.
Okay.
And is full there. And then we had Aunt True, who could like sneeze, a magical character for storytelling. We had Googly, who was the young boy who likes to stay quiet. He likes to read books. He doesn't like to go out and play or do any other manly macho things that he's into doing. And then there was Chunky, who was out there. She was breaking gender stereotypes, and she has a little government school uniform. She loves going to school. So we had all of these. And simultaneously, the writers were hired. So the process that came forth, Sesame believes in positive reinforcement, which means that you don't show negative to say it's wrong. So we don't imbibe the negative culture at all. So when we say positive reinforcement, we see and show things which are good and reinforce those ideas during the scripting or the process or talking by telling what is good, not by telling what is bad. So the writers and the puppeteers came together, and I think it was a whole collaboration, because when you start making characters like these, it's called a slug line. Slug line in filmmaking, or when you write a script, is when you have to sell your script to a producer, you call it a slug line. Now, what's a slug line? A slug line is this one line that you'll say. Hero heroine se mila, माँ बाप में उनकी तकरार था और एक villain आ गया और ये हो गया. Now that's just a slug line. Like any slug line that you can get, like, you know, from any movie, like Maine Pyar Kiya, to anything that you want to talk about. That's a slug line. Romeo and Juliet, slug line. And the producer will buy it or not buy it. So the slug line of our characters was just this. They've got a heart of gold.
Okay.
Then Chunky was curious. She has a heart of gold and she loves going to school. That's all I had. And then it's making that thing alive. So everything, so scriptwriters were writing, what are the words she will say? What is it that she wants to say? Does she get into sounds? What colors does she like? And I'm thinking about, how does she sneeze? How does she talk? How does she giggle? How does she walk? And all those forces came together. The main key thing about creating a life, because Chunky is a life form, it's alive when it's there. The main key thing to remember is empathy. We have to be empathetic towards the characters. And also to remember, very importantly, is whom are you making this for? Your audience. So having empathy for your characters and having empathy for your audience to understand. In script writing, that's what we say. Well, 101 of script writing is to understand the wound of a character. When we say wound, is why do they do what they do? Why does Chunky love school, going to school? Why is she out there? You know, why? Yeah. And character-driven stories. So character is essentially the most important thing in the audience whom you're making it for. Their wound and their want. Why do they do what they do? I think it's the most important thing in any script, in any character development.
You know, now that you say that, because we as people who design, are UX designers, are product managers, you know, all of us, for us also, empathy is the key and collaboration is the key. So, you know, when I hear you, I understand that creativity and thinking in the core has the same sort of a format. So it is great knowing that actually that goes into puppetering too.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I think, it's very important to understand whom you're making what for. And why would they want to have it or use it?
Yeah.
What ticks or clicks with them?
I will also add the word slug line. It resonates with, I don't know, people over here should be from like, it's a word elevator pitch, where in our world, people have to impress someone in just one line. And the slug line kind of helped me resonate with like, oh, it's very similar to elevator pitch. Like, pitch your ideas and you have to do it within the time when the elevator moves from one floor to another. So it's that short amount of time you have to, impress someone with your great ideas. So I think there are a couple of similarities between the creative fields, which is amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. Oh my God, elevator pitch. I need to learn that now. I'm going to go use it back home. Yeah.
So I also hear that you have worked in different countries, like, you worked with Syrian refugees, Bangladeshi refugees. So what was Sesame's thought process when they did that? Like, what did y'all wanted to impact? Or can you just tell us something more about those workshops that y'all did?
The core belief of Sesame is to provide educational content, high quality educational content for the most undeserved or underprivileged children around the world. That is the core belief of Sesame. So what happens with Sesame is we applied for a grant, Sesame New York, and it was the MacArthur grant, which is 100 million and change. And there were many organizations internationally that were doing this. So Sesame Workshop, along with IRC, which is the International Rescue Committee, they along with each other this grant, which is 100 million and change, because there are millions of children, the most impacted, I think, people or just human beings around the world at this point of time, and in millions are children because of conflict. And they're everywhere. They're in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, Bangladesh, everywhere. So I think the most important key factor that Sesame is doing, what it's doing is to build childhoods so that children don't have to grow up and go through therapy as adults. I mean, we want childhoods to be safe and happy and good, so they don't have to be treated as adults in adult life. And to make sure that every child and every childhood is nurtured with education and care and given the attention that it deserves, at least at the level of education, so they can somewhat be at par, and the same kind of high quality education sitting in an urban city can get. So once we started working with Sesame, Lego Foundation also actually came along, and it aided the whole impact. And we started working. I've line produced for Sesame in Bangladesh at the Rohingya refugee camps in Cox's Bazar and Kutupalong camps. And I've also line produced for audiovisual content in Jordan at the Azraq Syrian refugee camps. I've also trained, I'm a master puppeteer, and I trained the team for Ellen Simpson. And their show is in season 3. And it's in Jordan, Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria. And it's called Ahlan Simsim. Ahlan means welcome. Ahlan is an Arabic word, which means welcome Sesame, welcome Simsim. It's a beautiful show. The puppeteers are great. One thing that I have really felt like, when I visited both the camps, they were very different from each other. But what amazes me, I mean, I'm not going to talk about the negatives. We all know what's happened with the Rohingya refugees. We know the stories, and we know the stories about the Syrian refugees. But one thing that really inspires me is the human spirit of resilience. Oh my God. I was there in Cox's Bazar, and just seeing the place, how people are living, their hutments, what they've gone through. But still, just to imagine, these people had these little shops set up. They had mobile phones and SIM cards, and they were selling these DVDs, and they had all these buyers. And I was like, my God, the human spirit of resilience to get up, no matter what's happened to you, and to stand up and say, I'm going to start and redo all over again. I think that inspires me to such a level that we can get up anytime and redo our whole life. If you're feeling down, give up. I think that's a very important thing in life and in work, because I think when you're working, we do get like we phase out draft 47 of the script, and we're like, ugh, aur nahi ho sakta, ab nahi likh sakti, main have hit a block. No, man, you have to just get up and do it again, rethink, rediscover, Phoenix.
Nice. That is so good to hear. So when you were doing these workshops with these kids, how do you sort of connect with them? Or you were saying you wanted them to have a great childhood. How did you do that with them in those refugee camps?
I think one thing which I really love about puppetry as an art form, and I'll say I love it. I wasn't aware of it for a long time, and until I became a puppeteer, but now I just love it and I can't live without it, is these puppets, they have no caste. They have no creed, culture. They're orange and blue and black and brown. They don't have any color. They're not racial, nothing. They don't have surnames. So when they connect with children, And it is I want to anyone who has kids here will understand this, that when an adult talks to a kid, it's very different. A child knows that an adult is talking, but when a child talks to a child, there is no filter. That filter of bada baat kar raha hai goes away. So it is about connecting at a very childlike level, and the trust it builds. And that trust is amazing, how these puppets, which are tangible, they're not cartoons, you can actually touch them and feel them, and they're there, they're tangible, and it's beautiful. I've had this experience more than many times. It's a magical thing. It's like being called a shaman. So shamans are magicians who give life to inanimate objects. In olden times, they would have probably witch hunted me. But we're past that. I hope so. In such political times, it's difficult to say. But having said that, I just want to say, I want to share a story. So there was this little kid called Karan Arora, and I still remember him. He was this 5-year-old little thing, and he'd come to the sets once, and we were supposed to have these child Muppet interactions. So there's a little ledge. So for me as an adult to sit on a ledge with a puppeteer, I'm just like, my hand, hey, the puppet is sitting, hello, that I can do. But for the little kid, he had to be put up on a ledge and made to sit. Now, Karan Arora, obviously, Ghazal Javed has disappeared, and it's only the puppet and him, and they're talking animatedly. And he picks out a plastic flower from the hedge that's been there to decorate the set and gives it to Chamki. Now, Chamki's rods, it's not hands. So I said, can you stick it inside so that it doesn't fall? He sticks it inside. He doesn't care, okay? He doesn't care about that it's fur and what are the differences. And I'm going to come to that. Chamki's school bell uniform opens up. So I said, oh God, ab to shoot ke beech mein ho gaya. And I'm thinking, okay, so Ghazal is thinking, कि पपेट ऊपर है, अभी बेल्ट खुल गया, अभी क्या करना है, अभी कट होगा, फिर ये बच्चा बात नहीं करेगा. So I tell Karan through my Muppet, ऐसे कि please यार बेल्ट बंद कर देगा. Karan, can you close the belt? And he's like, हाँ. वो लेके बड़े अच्छे से उसका चमकी का स्कूल का बेल्ट लगा दे, जैसे उसकी मम्मी लगाती होंगी उसकी. I was like, this is amazing. And then the director looks at me and says, that means we're done. We got what we had to get. Let's end this, cut. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, Karan, now it's time to say goodbye. And all I did was with my hand, we're sitting on this ledge, and I do this, which means I'm going away, out of the frame. And Karan is sitting there, which is about 3 feet above the ground level, and he looks down. And he's afraid to jump. So Chamki comes in, I come in with my puppet, and I say, Karan, tum kar sakte ho. For those seconds, I can never forget that look on the kid's face, those seconds that he has. It was just seconds. He looks down, he looks up at Chamki, and Chamki says, "Tum kar sakte ho." And he just jumped.
I can't believe
And
it
that
had
is
power.
the leap of faith.
Yeah.
The leap of faith. How do you connect? And that's what I mean to say. How real is your connection with audiences, with people whom you're working for? And your connection will only be real when you understand them, when you understand where you're going, and it comes from a very honest place. And that needs to be there. And I think that's the beauty. That's the beauty. That's the magic.
Yeah, I've never seen like a creative, like I think honesty is one part that I'm taking away with this. Like I think we talk about empathy a lot in our field, but honesty is something that really, Ghazal, you brought up this point, and which made me think like, yes, I don't think we talk about honesty a lot in our profession, which is super, super important, because we are also doing something for others in a different way, not at a level where you are like directly interacting with them, but we are indirectly interacting with them. And it's super important for us to be more honest, because they are not in front of us to, prove us wrong or right. So thanks for bringing that perspective. It was great.
Of course.
I think, yeah, another creative field that you're associated with is movie making, and which is
Yes.
like highest level of storytelling. So I would get to the storytelling part, but before that, I'm just curious about like how you get into movies and how you are kind of managing these two different, not different, but kind of different worlds. So can you talk to us about that part?
Sure. Yeah. So actually the movie industry kind of like happened to me because I was in that moment of Phoenix. So I've been doing puppetry for a while, and I really wanted to challenge myself, do something new, because when I become and this if I stagnate at a point, like, okay, I know how this is going to happen. And if it's not challenging me anymore, I feel like in my head that I'm not growing. And that makes me very uncomfortable. It makes me so uncomfortable that I'm not able to do anything. So one day I just decided I'm going to Bombay and I'm going to do this. That's what I did. It was just that. I had nothing to go in with. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what filmmaking was, honestly. Nothing. I just knew that I'm going to rebuild. I'm creative. I'm going to rebuild and I'm just going to do this. So packed up my bags, came to Bombay, lived with my mom's friend for 3 months, and some things that I learned. One is follow up hamesha strong hona chahiye. Follow up strong hona chahiye. Matlab, I had a little diary. I would call people up. I would write down exactly what they said. If kal call karna, I will write that down. Kal call karna, set a reminder. What is this? Somebody said this. Kept follow up. Kept doing that 3 months, and I got my first gig, which is something I didn't know what to get into. I was like, direction, production. What am I good at? Because I've been doing puppetry. So puppetry is something that you're in front of the camera as an actor, but you're also framing, which means it's directorial. And assistant direction is kind of like that, but also production. So it's just different terminology for saying these things. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. How difficult can it be? Somebody gives me an Excel sheet and says, have you ever done this before? And I'm like, listen, I'm smart. Okay. So I'm like, sure. What's your format? He gives me a format. I'm like, it's just an Excel sheet format. What have I got to lose? The only thing I'll get to lose is probably he'll say you did a bad job, or try and tell me to do it better, or just say, okay, sorry, yaar, nahi ho raha. I said, 3 mahine to wait kiya, usse zyada kya hoga? I took that Excel sheet. There was a format. Followed it through. It wasn't rocket science, honestly. The biggest thing we do is fear. We stop challenging ourselves and we get scared of doing new things. I aced it, I got it, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 became an assistant director. And I'm actually very glad and I'm very honored that I've, by God's grace, worked with some of the best directors, Vishal sir and Raksa, Meghna Gulzar. They're great directors. So just loved it.
Yeah, I think that's where you stand really true on that saying that I was showing earlier, like, who's gonna stop who's gonna stop me? So for you it's gonna, like, I'm not waiting for any permission, but I'm just waiting there to get out there and just prove myself.
We stop ourselves the most. I think we are our own biggest obstacle.
Right. We downsell ourselves all the time.
All the time. We're like, shit, yeah, nahi. Anybody tried using monkey ladders recently, hanging for them? My physiotherapist told me to hang from a monkey ladder, and I was like, "Kya? Monkey ladder? Yeah, ye to bahut karti hu main." I stood up, tried to hang, and I slipped and fell down, and I was like, "What the hell just happened?" Because I realized I didn't have grip. The last time I used a monkey ladder was when I was a kid, and my exact words to my physiotherapist were, "Why did we ever stop going to the playground? I don't get it." Because the stretch I got on my back, it was like no other stretch a physiotherapist or a gymnast or anybody could give me. I was like, damn, we just stop challenging ourselves, stop learning new things, and we get afraid.
So let's talk about the movie making and storytelling. As I said, it's the highest level of storytelling, being creative. In that 3.5 or 2.5 movie time, you have to keep your audience engaged. You have to, build that rapport with them so that they get the story, plus they understand the characters, plus they, understand the whole emotions attached to it. Tell us about it. I know there will be nitty-gritties around it, but at a high level, what are those biggest components that goes into movie making in that creative field? Just can share that with us.
Sure. I think two best things that I love about movie making is, one, it's completely scaling from the word go. From the idea, it germinates, and you're just thinking scale. It just keeps rising. You think about, because it germinates as a little thing, a line, or maybe a character, or maybe something that you dream about, that iske baare mein likhna hai. It comes onto a paper, it becomes drafts, and think about it. It's becoming drafts, it becomes a script. You have a producer putting in lakhs and lakhs of rupees. Then you have teams coming up, building sets, shooting. And then finally, it's reaching the homes and the lives of everybody that millions of Indians. That is just the best example of scaling that I can think about. And with that scaling, I think comes responsibility as filmmakers. Because honestly, having worked in this industry, I know one thing, that people believe you. People believe the content that you show, even if you say it's fictional. There's so many people who believe you. So as a filmmaker, as a person who creates anything, not only as a filmmaker, as a person who creates, I think responsibility, intention are two very important things that I think you need to have your heart and mind in the right place. Because somewhere, someone is remembering what you're saying and learning from what you're saying and repeating it and putting it into action. So one, scaling. And two, the other thing that I love about filmmaking is everybody is there to win. There is no, people are not there for mediocrity. There's nobody. The costume designer wants a national award. The director wants the best film award. The actors want the national award. The art director wants the national award. Sab log, the whole team is rooting for it. Ke yaar, also national milna hai, star award milna hai. Matlab everybody. So imagine the positivity and the energy that is going into one product. It is just about everybody is working to ace it. You're not thinking about doing something, bana lete hain, chal jayega. No, it's one idea that somebody scaled and somebody else put some money, and that puts so much pressure. I mean, the producer also is putting in money because they want to see it grow. Everybody, it's just scaling and growth. And I think that's what I love about filmmaking.
Oh my God, it's like so much information in such a short amount of time, and I can completely relate to a lot of things. I think this is something that's really blowing up my mind, and everyone, like except me and Rashmi, feel free to chime in with your emotions as well, because I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now. So another question that comes to mind, since this is a Women Rethinking Forum, how being a woman in these two industries, like, was it difficult? Was it challenging? Was it empowering as well? Like being a woman, you somehow attach yourself with these emotions automatically. I feel that emotions a lot of time. How that helped you being a woman in these industries and being creative?
I think I drove in a lot of strength from who I am, from having started on my journey in life, from negating my identity to actually embracing my identity. I'm a Muslim woman from a very small town, from a single parent household, and I've had child sexual abuse and all kinds of sexual abuses that you can think of in childhood from men and relatives, etc., etc. And it kind of like impacts you. So you become scared. I was scared of my Muslim identity because I come from UP and Lucknow. So I used to feel scared. I would like give different Hindu surnames, so to speak, because I was afraid that I was from a single parent household and, people might not like it. And there was a lot of harassment in Lucknow, because I think all the young men who grown up in smaller tier 2, tier 3 cities, I think they saw a lot of Bollywood, which was, I'm trying to say, irresponsible movie making, where they thought कि लड़की के पीछे follow करते और छेड़ते तो लड़की को प्यार हो जाता है. Yeah, if rape was supposedly said, yes, okay, and then you'll wake up in the morning and smile or shadi ho jayegi. That's what men grew up thinking. And we kind of reinforce those ideas through visual, audio, visual, social media, which was wrong. So I grew up with a lot of identity crisis and not accepting it. But I think I've been a rebel all my life. So I rebelled and I said, nahi, I want to go out and I want to study and I'll do this and I'll do that. And I rebelled. And I think it came to a point where I started accepting. So I rebelled and wanted to study. I went to Delhi. I studied in college. I stood up for elections. I broke a 36-year record of winning elections as an independent girl candidate in my college, Sri Venkateswara College, because people were like, girl candidate, independent, no party, where will you stand? And I stood up and I spoke about it and I said, yeah, we are going to, because, and it just came with embracing myself and embracing my identity. And I think that has kind of like powered and given me strength to move forward as a woman. And I have motored through with it, and getting characters like Chamki, I think I've learned sort of, we develop. It's like a give and take. It's a synonymous thing. It's an extension of my soul. So Chamki learns from me and I learn from Chamki. I know the importance of breakfast because of Chamki. I know my kakagas because of Chamki. If I wasn't doing Chamki, probably my kakagas would have been out of the box a little bit. But so it's empowering each other. It's an extension of your soul. And when you're doing positive role modeling. I think you have to, you imbibe positive things. And I think all the speakers, spiritual leaders everywhere will tell you about positive thinking, or even your therapist or your counselor will tell you about positive thinking. And why do they do it? I think because when you start thinking positively, you start imbibing those positive ideas. In Bollywood as well, I think the whole industry is where women are just supposed to be tomboys. And I've completely negated that thing. I don't need to be a tomboy to be anything. I don't like the word tomboy. To attach a boy with anything, or boisterous, I don't like such words. I'm a woman and I'm okay. I don't need to be a superwoman. I hate those words also, because that's like adding things. I said, why don't you go be a superman, man? I don't want to be a superwoman. I just want to be a regular woman doing my thing. You want to take that whole pressure on you of being the superman. That's like kind of like those are like excuses and trying to like put more burden on women, trying to say, Baba, you're such a great mother, huh? And you, oh wow, you're doing so well in work also. Oh my God, you can do this also. Amazing. I don't actually, honestly, I would say, don't give me these adjectives. Don't say nice things about me. I'm happy. I'll say these things about you, and why don't you do it? So it came from that point. And even Bollywood, like I'm glad that I'm working with Meghna Gulzar as a woman director. The choices of films that she's made, even Vishal Bharadwaj, the choices of films that he's made, the characters I've played, I've been very blessed and kind of motored through. And I'm glad I'm at a position where I choose the work that I want to do. It's a great empowering feeling to be able to choose the work that you want to do, and I try and make the good choices or the right choices. But it's opportunities that we create for ourselves, and I think that's important. When we start being afraid and accept and embrace ourselves and our identities, I think we create opportunities.
Yeah, I know you said you hate adjectives, but again, I will give you an adjective here. You are full of life. You're not a rebel. I see a person who is full of life and knows like how to, like I'm literally holding my stomach and laughing the whole time when the Muppets were there. It's like at 6 a.m. if I've laughed, I don't know. I haven't remembered that when was that last time. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad.
With that, you were mentioning about Chamki. There was a question from Amra in the chat. I would like to take that question. So she's writing, we know that Chamki is a 6-year-old girl from Gali Gali Sim Sim. But Amra is wondering, did you have an inspiration from your personal life, something that inspired you whenever you are portraying being Chamki? So was
yes,
that where
Amra, I will love to answer that question.
Hey,
Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for your question.
Sure. I just wanted to say, as soon as I joined, this question was going on that what is UX? And I am a UX designer, and what I know from UX is that, in my opinion, it's about a person's emotions and attitudes towards using anything that they are, not only a product or a service. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here when I say that this was the most engaging and emotional, and also the most positive Saturday that I've had in a very long time.
Yay, so happy.
Thank you so much for that. And regarding my question, I asked it in the starting of the session when we were talking about Chamki, and I noticed that in the past 20 minutes that we were speaking with you, you have actually answered half of that question. But I would like to know, was there something in your past, or is it you being a 6-year-old, or is it you? Is Chamki something that you as a 6-year-old wanted to be? So I was just wondering that while you were portraying the role of Chamki here.
That's a great question, Amra. Thank you for your question. I'd love to answer it. And so Chamki, I've derived a lot of Chamki from my childhood, actually. It's the best parts of my life, which is my childhood. And I say working with puppets is actually, when people look at me, they don't realize how old I am. Shh, I'm not telling just in case you guys want to know. But so that's the thing. It's the fountain of youth. It's the skill that I've honed. So I've lived my childhood over and over again, and keep doing that with my work, so much so that it kind of like those childlike qualities are kind of like imbibed in myself and in my characters. So it's reliving the best parts of my child life, and it's amazing. It's a fountain of youth, I'm telling you. There is no serum or beauty product that can do that. It's only wonder. I think that's what we miss. Children look at a fan 100 times and they still wonder how the hell it's moving. We as adults, we become jaded too quickly with things. We're like, old news. But to keep alive, I think we need to keep the wonder alive.
Right. Thank you so much, Ghazal, for
Most
answering
welcome. Thank you for asking.
I think the one call out here was definitely like as we grew up, and the childs are we call them innocent, but I think those were the times when we come up with genuineness and ideas that are really coming from down our, like somewhere from our heart, and we're thinking from all angles, but it was a different emotions attached to being a childhood. You going back to that same emotions through Chumki, it's like incredible job. I don't know, like if I try remind myself like, hey, you have to be sometimes, don't have to think always. It's being serious is good, but at the same time, living that life in childlike style is totally different. Like, I don't know how being an adult someone can do it, but that's really, really amazing.
Thank you, Priya.
So I don't know if Rashmi, do you have any final questions, or anyone in the chat, anyone from the group would like to involve themselves in the conversation?
Yes, Priya, I have actually many of them. I can take the next 1 hour, but I'll pick few of them.
Go for it.
But I'll pick few of them. So when you started contributing for the girls' education, gender equality, and other things, I think it was a few years back, and you have seen the trend and how it has improved, where it was, where it is now, and still there is a gap. So can you talk about like what was the journey and like what are the gaps still that is there?
So I just want to put like a number to all of you, which is there's only 3% of the global philanthropic funding goes to education. Only 3% around the world. And a sliver of that goes to ECE, which is early childhood education. When in the ages of 2 to 5, a child makes 1 million neural connections per second. It is the age of maximum impact. And that's the age that we're missing. We're not funding, we're not investing in early childhood education, which I think is the formative years of any child, and it needs a lot of care. It needs more funding, it needs more investments, it needs more people. It needs more parents, caregivers, teachers putting in efforts. I mean, raising the next generation of humanity is not a small job.
Yeah.
It's not. And that's why, I mean, I think it's very important. We have definitely come a long way, but we're still struggling, honestly. I mean, especially like philanthropy in India. I mean, we do philanthropy for political reasons and for religious reasons, but we're not investing in children. I mean, and you can see it very clearly with television shows that are on air, like the funding that a normal regular, a Sony, Zee, all these channels get, Colors, to a funding that your children's TV shows get is so minuscule. When your children's industry is huge. At the same time, apart from the TRPs and the funding that we're talking about, the kind of shows that you have for children, you have a huge array and a variety of shows for adults, but there is not a single show that, I mean, from all the shows that you have, I'm not going to name them, but for all the children's education shows that you have, I mean, I think Gully Gully Sim Sim is one of its kind, and a few others, which I'll say on YouTube as well. YouTube Kids has come up with some great channels like Choo Choo TV and all for children. But other than that, children's programming is still suffering. And even when you have products which are free of cost, because Sesame Street gives out a lot, one major aspect of Sesame Street is outreach. So we give a lot of our study materials to Anganwadis, Palwadis, reaching in communities. We also work with audio, visual, social, multimedia. So we have mobile phones, tablets that we get, investors, philanthropic investors who give those. We work through community radios. So I'm a voiceover artist as well. So we do a lot of development as that. But it's not reaching everybody, honestly. I do workshops personally in Jammu and Kashmir area, in conflict areas, in a home which has about 700 girls. They're orphaned girls, children. They suffer from PTSD because most of the girls, I mean, just they've been like harmed or in the way of terrorism and the sort of kind of like mix between terrorism and the state policing and everything. So they suffer from a lot of PTSD. So I work with puppets and I help them out. But when I talk about outreach to the fringes where it's needed in conflict areas, it's not reaching there. Honestly, we'll see slums in cities which probably get aid because people are more woke in big cities, but the fringes are still under the shadows and it's not reaching. So I really feel, the need of the hour is to invest in children. They are the next generation.
Yeah, right. So you kept asking about UX when you started, and
Yes.
most of us, like we were at the backstage. In my humble opinion, UX is all about the experience the human goes through when accessing product or services, be it
That's amazing.
positive or negative. And the same, I think, how do you plan those positive experience when you are in a Muppeteer shoe or assistant movie director? So how do you plan those positive ones?
So I would like to answer it by saying that positive reinforcement is the one thing that Sesame works by. It's the rule of the thumb. So when we think about the customer, the children, basically, whom we are addressing. So it's 2 to 8-year-olds, for example, it's Sesame. And then the intent. So your product, which is a Muppet called Chumki. So you have a product which is essentially, the product is made for your audience. And there is nothing, it's aided to the effect that it is fine-tuned to work in a way that it will assist the children who need it through entertainment and education. So what education is, it's kind of like subliminally, psychologically put in through the entertainment. And it's always positive. So you're not showing negative. To say negative is wrong, but you're always doing positive. And I think in filmmaking also the positive comes with, I think, responsibility and intention. I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. No matter what we're creating, whether it's products or, honestly, scientists created weapons of mass destruction. Nobody else did.
Yeah.
They could have been used, like, I'm just saying, it's what we put it to use for. Like, if somebody did create a plutonium or let's say, like civil nuclear power plants, they're great. It solves a lot of energy problem. But if you're using it for other things, then it becomes bad. So intention, I think, with everything is very important, what you're intending it for.
Yep, true.
And that's what makes it positive or negative.
We have one question in audience as well. So I think it's from Parmi. Would you like to go for it? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi,
So
Parmi.
I really enjoyed. Like, it was so full of, like, the whole chat and everything. It was really, really awesome. Like, I didn't feel like it was a session or something or workshop. It was just a casual chat about experiences and everything. It was
I'm
really
so
awesome.
glad.
I would like to ask, like, how do you manage to such two different fields, like this? Do you work with Bangladesh and everything, and the filmmaking? Like, how do you manage those two different things? Like, we are doing UX job and everything, but also if we think of something else, so how should we, like, do you have any like advice on that? Like, how should we manage things?
Sure. That's a great question, Parmi. Thank you for asking that.
I'm struggling a lot with that.
Because honestly, sometimes I get overwhelmed, and I
Yeah.
want to be honest with you. I do get overwhelmed. It doesn't happen easily, and I feel you and I'm with you right there. It doesn't happen easily. I get overwhelmed all the time. Sometimes I'm like, how the hell am I juggling all this? Or I'm overworking. But honestly, I think the one thing that kind of like drives me and keeps motivating me to do something is when I know that I'm making a change. I'm constantly telling myself that I think again I want to say that when I think it's very important. I love going to funerals. An odd thing to say, but I love going to funerals because it teaches you about mortality in life. And I think mortality is the only thing that keeps you alive. The fact that you know that this is a mortal life and you have this lifetime to do whatever you can.
Yeah.
That is what drives me. I know that I have this time and I know that I just got to do it, man. I just have to be at it. If I become slack, what am I leaving behind? And when I was in the 8th standard, I read Khalil Gibran's book, The Prophet. And it has a lovely quote. It says, "For through my living word, I shall live in death." And that is the meaning of immortality for me. Through your work, through your words, that's the only way those are the only things that will live on. This body will perish. And when you know that it's perishable, I can't even imagine any other way how you wouldn't want to just get up every day in the morning.
Grab
and say,
everything.
yeah, let's go. Let's do this. Maximize. And that's what I do.
I think Suha has been trying to ask a question for a very long time, so I'll let her talk.
Thank you, Rashmi. Hi, Giza.
Thank you.
Hi, Suha. How are you?
I absolutely enjoyed listening to you.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
And I don't think, none of us have even moved for about a minute. And, your work and caliber is extremely inspiring. I'm sure you've heard that a lot of times, but
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
I think, the spirit that I've seen in you is something very rare in people. And it's truly invincible. So I would just say, I wish you all the best. And I think you are someone who could reach, higher heights. And our with you has certainly given me a lot of learnings for sure. But, it's really the power to be different and, fight our own mental battles. I guess my question is more goes back to your time again when you were trying to, meet with kids in Kashmir or Syria. You at one point said you were a master puppeteer and
Yes.
you have a lot of trainings. And then you also spoke about connection, and I think it would be interesting to know, how did you connect with someone who does not speak the same language? So if you take Syria, for example, how did you train someone who's going to go and then show in Arabic, or the language barrier? How did you do that? And, also with that said, like Mayur, I have a lot of questions in mind, but I think this is truly amazing, the kind of work that you're into. We all, are affected by it, and I think you're one of the few people who is going about doing something in their lifetime, and you for sure definitely sleep better than most of us the nights. But yeah, if you could expand your experience there in Syria and other conflict places, let me know.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for such a great question, and thank you for all the kind words that you've said to me. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. Okay, so this has been very challenging, honestly, I'll tell you, because I've been a master puppeteer and I've trained 4 countries till now. I trained Afghanistan, which was one of our very key Sesame shows. It's called Bakhche Simsim, which means the Garden of Simsim. And we have these strong puppets called Zari. Zari means a shimmering little design that you find in clothes, and she has a little brother. So both these characters are there, but like we had to go through a lot because the main language in Afghanistan is Dari and Pashto. But thankfully they understood a little bit of Urdu because they love Bollywood movies and they love Amir Khan and Salman Khan. And I was like, yes, score, we can do this. We will do this. So but I think, and then I trained Iftiyah Simsim, which is UAE. Then I trained Jordan, which is Ahlan Simsim, but it's a different form of Arabic, so it's different. And Palestinian Arabic is very different from Syrian Arabic.
Right.
And then when I worked in Rohingya refugee camps, the language of Rohingya is different from Bangla, and Bangla is very different from the Bengali that we speak in India.
Right.
So all these different languages, it's been extremely challenging, but I think I have learned a lot from this is one, empathy and observation. I do a lot of observations. I look at body language. I look at people a lot, like, and this is what I've learned from my masters and my trainers also, because they've trained all over the world, and especially sometimes I'm doing online, but to give attention. I think attention is very important. Like if when I was talking to you, honestly, sometimes, and this is what I do in work also, what happens is when I give attention, I have like this laser focus. So it kind of like the surrounding area, it kind of like goes out of focus. So I'm listening to Priya or Mayur or Rashmi, and I'm like looking at them. And when I'm looking at them, I'm looking at everything that their face is doing. It's like their eyebrows, their eyes, their emotions, their little twitches in the mouth, what their hands are doing. And I kind of read this non-verbal language to understand if they can understand me and I communicate. It's non-verbal communication. I will move my head like this. So if the person in front is understanding, they might subconsciously move their head. But if they're not understanding, they will never move their head like this. So it's subconscious non-verbal communication that I've kind of learned and honed over these years, which helps in communication a lot. Because of course, and especially it helped me because I was working with children, and children don't have language as a tool to work with. So for children also, you just have to observe.
That's truly awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your question. Thank you.
We're almost time, but that reminded me, like when I came out of the India for the first time, I got to know this is Indian nod. So we nod a lot. It's like this. It's actually something around the world known for. The Indian nod is a very particular thing, but it's related to something else. Like people are confused whether you're saying yes or you're not understanding.
Yeah,
But
it's like this or this or
this, yeah.
figure.
Yeah, I know. So anyways, we're almost time. I don't see any other question, but the energy, Ghazal, was infectious in all positive ways. So thanks for giving us such a amazing evening. And for me, it was morning. So my weekend is almost like so much energetic.
Thank you, Priya.
Yeah. And with that, since there are no other questions, I'm pretty sure people will have questions. Mayur has list probably.
Yeah,
I just want to say one last thing, which is to everybody: just never be afraid, and never be afraid to make a fool of yourself. Because I remember when I joined puppetry, my nanny, I tried to explain to my nanny what I do. God bless her soul, she's not with me anymore. But I tried to explain and she didn't get it. So I said, she's thinking, kuch to dhang ka karegi, ladki nahi karegi, Delhi jaake badi hai, kya karegi? And then I said, Nani, main cartoon hu. And you should have seen her face. Her face fell. She said, pata nahi, मेरी mother, my mom's name is Seema, and she thought Seema ही क्या कर दिया लड़की को, cartoon बन गई है. मतलब she couldn't fathom or understand. I think she was in denial. Cartoon कैसे बन सकती है? Like how can my granddaughter become a cartoon? But I'm saying puppetry gave me so much freedom and courage to be foolish, and it gives you this freedom. Because I have to do this all the time. I have to be animated and make faces and talk like that, and I don't care about what people are perceiving because I'm not afraid of judgment. So that's one thing that I like. Really, guys, just never be afraid. Don't stop yourself. Go get him. You're all tigers. Just go for it. Tigers.
So Ghazal, your passion, the approach towards what you do, and everything comes on your face, on your eyes, and that's what I think the designer should also do. In any way, if Rethinking UX can be of any help to you, feel free to reach out to us. We are always call away.
Definitely. And, thank you so much.
Yes. And we would love to be part of all good work that you are doing. I have 5-6 more questions, but I'll take it offline.
I know the list is long here. We're pretty sure with everyone else. So with that, thank you everyone for joining us for this evening. I think this was the amazing evening that I'm hopefully this, I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, but hopefully this is something that you enjoyed. I think I'm taking a lot of, there are a lot of takeaways. And I as I said, there are so many overlaps when you listen to another person from another creative field. It makes you feel and wonder, like you can take so much and you can bring back to your work, and from being honest, being empathetic to, just being genuine and be yourself, love what you're doing. I think people, there are two ways, like you love to work or you live to work or work to live. So I think that's the same thing you are doing. You're enjoying your work as well as you're making, you're working on for a cause. So thank you so much, Ghazal. It was wonderful talking to you. And
thank you,
everyone,
Priya. Thank you, Mayur. Thank you, Rashmi. And thank you, UX. Go,
Yay, go. All right, bye guys.